Hello, and welcome to the inaugural episode of Reading New Testament Greek with Dustin and Johnny. My name is Dustin Smith, and this is my co host, Johnny Barnes.
Hey, hey.
Welcome, welcome. And we're going to be reading some New Testament Greek with you all today. Now, let's kind of talk a little bit about what our aim is and our target audience. I think our aim really is to kind of just work through some passages in the New Testament. We're not looking at anything that is particularly difficult or particularly controversial in regard to theology or beliefs, but I mean, you never know what rubs someone the wrong way. Who knows? And we're just going to put the Greek text up here, and we're going to read the Greek, and we're going to translate it straight into English, and we're going to talk about some of the things we see. We're going to do some exegesis and talk about some of the words and maybe some of the decisions that we make as translators and interpreters of the New Testament. And our hope is that pastors and seminary students and Bible college students, especially those that have had, kind of 1 year of Greek, they can kind of pick up and dust off the Greek that maybe they've kind of forgotten or they haven't used in a while, and they can follow along and they can feel like, hey, I can be a part of this. I can understand what's going on, and I can learn a thing or two about this. Now, we also are going to talk about some practical applications with the text, and we're hoping that maybe if you're someone who doesn't know any Greek, that this will build an interest to where you decide, hey, I want to actually start to learn some New Testament Greek. And if that's something you're interested in, let us know in the comment section, and we can direct you to good resources. We can point you in the right direction. I've been teaching Greek at the university level for several years, and I've taught undergraduate students and I've taught graduate students. So I've got a lot of experience with that. And my co-host here, Johnny Barnes, has got his real life job is that he does translating Greek. So I'll kind of pass it over to you, and you can kind of tell me a little bit of kind of what you're hoping that people can get out of this, and maybe a little bit of your background.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm hoping to, one thing I'm hoping people will get out of this kind of a better understanding of English as well. I know one thing for me is that when I was in seminary and I was learning more about Greek, I was like, wow, I'm really bad at English. Like I need to learn English first before I can really learn Greek. So even this could be something that's really challenging for people who aren't really wanting to learn Greek, but it'll help them understand English better. And therefore, I think you can really understand the text better of the Bible. And I just think it's going to be a blessing, hopefully, to a lot of different people. So a little bit about me. So my name is Johnny Barnes, and I studied at Dallas Theological Seminary, and currently I'm working on the REV, the Revised English Version, working mainly on the New Testament. And right now I'm working through the Gospels, but we're working through the Gospels, through Romans, um, just cruising along. I'm loving it. I really enjoy translating. I think it's really valuable. I think that God's word it means a lot to people, and I just hope that I would take that seriously and would be faithful as a translator. But I'm learning more. I mean, I'm getting better at Greek every day as well. I could say right now I'm better at Greek than I was when I graduated. Um, and that's just from working with it daily. And this, the longer you work with it, the better you get, the more comfortable you get. So I'm really excited, and I hope that this will be just a great refresher for people. Yeah, honestly, for people who maybe just have a little bit of seminary experience, that this would be a great refresher for them. So I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm excited too, and I'm happy to have you along for your insights. Something that those who have a keen ear for pronunciation will very soon pick out is that Johnny is going to be reading Greek with the kind of typical Erasmian pronunciation. I don't even know if that's the official term, but that's kind of the normal way that it's taught in most Bible colleges and seminaries now. Not all of them, though, because I have seen the modern pronunciation being taught, and I've taught it, of course, that way. But I'm going to be reading it with the modern pronunciation because Greek is a modern language, and people who live in Greece obviously speak modern Greek, and the pronunciation has just kind of changed over time. So you'll hear us even pronounce the same word slightly differently. we're going to have the text up there on the screen so you can kind of see what we're doing with it. And so I think you'll be able to follow along, but just kind of keep in mind that I'm reading with a modern pronunciation. He's going to be reading with an Erasmian pronunciation. And I think this is a good way to not alienate any of our readers who have studied Greek and have learned one of those two different pronunciations. Those are the only two ways that Greek is being taught, I think, today. So,
Yep, absolutely.
well, with that out of the way, I think we can get started. So what we've done, as I put this up here, do you want to talk a little bit about the text that we're using? We're going to be using the NA28, and maybe if you want to make a small comment on what is the NA28 versus the Greek New Testament 5.
Yeah, the UBS 5 is another very common Greek text, but we're choosing to use the NA28. I would say, maybe the NA28 is a little bit more the standard, maybe the academic standard, but I mean UBS is great as well. I use the NA28 for work as well for the REV. That's what the REV is based on. But yeah, it's gone through 28 editions. It is tried and true, and they're learning things. We're learning more about word derivations and different things throughout time. We uncover manuscripts all the time, so you learn more about words, you get different readings, and just in fact recently Sean Finnegan actually posted about another big manuscript that was uncovered. I can't remember the name of it, but it was uncovered just a few months ago. So all these things affect the Greek text, right? So this text is a compilation of all the different manuscripts, and essentially it's this whole process of textual criticism, and you're trying to get at what did the original, in this case the epistle of First John, what did it originally say? And so it's this whole process of textual criticism where you're trying to read through different texts and different manuscripts and establish what was the original. So that's what this is. This is a compilation book. There is no manuscript that looks like this. It's just a compilation of a bunch of different manuscripts, and that's how they've made the NA28. So yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, this is the standard scholarly text that translators are going to use in order to translate what it is. It's a scholarly reconstruction. And again, this is not some podunk thing that someone published in their basement. This is, again, the standard scholarly text that the scholars use. I think it's another thing to kind of keep in mind, the NA28 and the UBS 5, they're actually identical in the text that they offer at this point. But typically the NA28 will actually have a much more extensive apparatus in regard to textual variants. And we might touch on that a little bit today. I don't think there are any significant or noteworthy variants, but I might point out one or two just to kind of talk about them and why. I might give my guess as to why some of those arose. But I don't want to spend a lot of time on that. You're here because you want to hear Dustin and Johnny attempt to read New Testament Greek, and so that's what we are going to do. So we flipped a coin, and I lost, so I have to go first. So I'm going to read the odds, and Johnny is going to read the evens in regard to the verses.
Yep.
So I'm going to start here in chapter 1, verse 1, and so you're just going to hear me read it, and I'll read it fairly slowly. I'm not going to read it as fast as I would normally do. I'll read it slowly so you can kind of follow along, and then I'll go back and I'm just going to do just a fresh translation of it. And then we'll come back and maybe talk about a couple of insights from the text. And then Johnny will have his turn. He'll get to do verse number 2. So,
yep.
All right. So we're here. We have, John epistle first, which is just kind of a title that's given to it. Although that is not a title that we find on our earliest manuscripts. That actually doesn't start to appear for 100 years later. So if you're obviously writing something, you're not going to write, the first epistle of John. That's not the sort of thing you're going to say. And actually, this particular book is anonymous. It actually doesn't tell us who the author actually is. So,
and that's really common. Very commonly there is no title. Almost, you might know better than me, Dustin, but almost every single New Testament book doesn't really have a title. They're all added in later.
Yeah, they're added later to kind of distinguish them from each other. My own personal view, and I think this is pretty much a scholarly standard at this point, is that the author of First John also wrote Second John and Third John. So I'm just going to call those, they're all the same author. And I actually do think that when you look at the vocabulary and the writing style, this particular author also wrote the epilogue of the Gospel of John, which is chapter 21. Chapter 21 is kind of like this chapter that was kind of added at the end after the kind of the natural ending place in the Gospel of John, which is John 20 verses 30 31. So
Yep.
I think that's pretty much a standard view. So I'm just going to call this the author, whoever it is, because he doesn't identify himself. So that's all we're going to do there. So that's just me trying to be as careful as possible. All right, let's get some water here. This is not a drinking game sort of a thing. That would make this a lot more fun.
That's for episode 2, right?
That's for episode 2. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. So I probably could just underline that whole thing right there. Boom. That's pretty good. Okay. All right. So this is me reading 1 John chapter 1, verse 1 in the modern Greek pronunciation. All right. O in up archis, o aki koamen, o ero akamen, tis ophthalmis imon, o etheasametha, ke a kires imon, epsi. Sorry, I need my glasses. Sorry, epsi laphisan. Okay, peri tu logu tis zois. Okay, a lot of really powerful, strong vowels there in the modern Greek pronunciation. Okay, so start off here. We have that which was from beginning, but I'm just going to add the word the there because obviously beginning.
Yep.
It's just that's there. So that which was from the beginning, that which we have heard.
Yep.
That which we have seen. And we got the dative case here. So you typically we do 2 or 4, but that doesn't really work with this. So we're going to say probably with that which we have seen with the eyes. Which eyes? The eyes of us. So we're probably going to say with our eyes. Okay. A much stronger word than seeing. That which we beheld. Okay. That which we beheld. And then we have this word and, probably maybe an even,
Yep.
or beheld also, maybe. And then we have the hands of us. Okay, probably held. We're going to supply with our hands because we obviously we just saw with our eyes, and that which we have beheld with our hands. There's something here that's going on. There's an experience that was real, it was genuine, and it's not something that was kind of made up or anything. Okay, let's keep going on there. And then we have, sorry, I just lost my place there. Touched. Oh, sorry, there we have touched. That way, we touched. Peri is a preposition, and it could be translated as around, like perimeter, if it is followed with the accusative case. But we actually have here is the genitive case that follows, and so peri means concerning. Okay, so this is going to be concerning to logu tis zois, concerning the word of the life. Probably just smooth out and remove the word the there. So the word of life. So that's kind of a rough translation, just kind of going through. We have a lot of just kind of like these sort of like dangling verbs because we don't actually know what the object is. We just kind of have this, it's this relative pronoun. And the interesting thing is that if you think of your relative pronouns, masculine, feminine, and neuter, you have os, e, and o. This is actually a neuter relative pronoun. That's why I'm saying that which, as opposed to he whom or she whom. And that's going to be really interesting here because there's this big, I don't know what it is, but people feel like there's this draw and this desire to really kind of connect this to the prologue of John's gospel. And I really think that if you're going to go in that direction, you really have to kind of make a case because it's not altogether clear that John's gospel, at least the prologue, was written before this. Like it could be, but maybe not. Maybe this was written first. But in John's prologue, we have the logos, which is grammatically masculine. But what we have here is clearly not grammatically masculine. It's grammatically neuter. And if you read commentaries, they'll talk about the struggle to figure out what is this referring to. Okay, but if it's neuter, it's not referring to a person, because a person is either masculine or feminine. So unlike modern people today, in Greek, you are either masculine or feminine, and you can't be both, and you can't be either if you're going to be a person. And so at the end of this verse, we have concerning the word of life, and logos there is of course grammatically masculine, and of course life is grammatically feminine. So it can't refer to either of those.
Yeah.
So what is going on here? Well, my guess is that the thing, this thing that we've had from the beginning, and we could talk about what that is there, of course, dealing with what we've heard, what we've seen, what we've beheld, and what we've actually touched. This is talking about an experience. And I think this is their Christian experience. I think the experience that they had, and they've had this from the beginning, something that they've had, and perhaps the author is telling us that he was an eyewitness to these things, because he's talking about this in a way that he wants to actually, as we're going to read in the next couple of verses, the way that he's going to explain this to his readers. He's going to say this is something that we're announcing to you. I'm kind of getting ahead of myself here, but there's definitely something that's real and tangible. That's not some sort of made up fairy tale. He seems to be writing from the perspective of at least an eyewitness, or at least an early person who experienced this. And he's talking about this in a way that his readers will be able to kind of understand in light of their own experience that they've had from the beginning. So, of course, you have to kind of like take this phrase op archis and kind of trace it throughout First John to kind of see that it seems like from the beginning seems to be from the beginning of their Christian experience, maybe from the beginning of their conversion. But of course, if the author here is describing his own Christian experience, something that he heard and that he saw and that he beheld and that he touched, his experience probably involved him being an eyewitness. Again, it's just me making an educated guess.
Yeah. Yeah. There's just one thing to add real quick. Op our case, from the beginning, that I did some tracing of that phrase, through First John and through the Gospel of John. And it's really interesting. Most times, yeah, he does actually use it in reference to the beginning, you could say the beginning of the ministry of Jesus, something like that, because it'll be like Jesus knew this from the beginning. Well, obviously that's not from the beginning of time. That's from the beginning of his ministry, or something along those lines. So but it is occasionally there's one or two instances where it is used seemingly of kind of like from the Genesis beginning. So it's a tricky phrase, and it's this is not the clearest verse. Let's just say that.
Yeah. I think if we had a choice based on the context that we have here, whether this is referring to the Genesis creation or whether it's the beginning of his own Christian experience, it seems like he's talking about his own eyewitness experience that he had there.
Yeah.
That seems to, I think, fit the context a little bit better. And of course, at least if he wanted to reference Genesis 1:1, he would not have used ap archis. He would have used in archis, or excuse me, in archi, with the dative there, excuse me. But we're not talking about the Gospel of John. We're not talking about Genesis 1. We're talking about First John, and I want to kind of just focus on the text that we got here, because we got plenty to work with at this particular point. Anything else in here that you think is interesting before I pass things over to you for verse 2?
Yeah, I think it's super interesting how he only uses the neuter, the neuter relative pronoun, ha. Yeah, it's like, why? You think it seems to be pretty clearly referring to Jesus, but yeah, why throw this into the neuter? Why not just use the masculine? That would make it very, very clear. The other unclear thing is he doesn't give you a subject or an object, you could say. He just says, that which we've heard from the beginning, which we've seen with our eyes, concerning the word of life. It's not that he's seen the word of life. It's that he's seen something concerning the word of life. So it's just this weird, really, really weird construction. Um, yeah,
Yeah. And that's why, again, my best guess is that, if he certainly knows. I mean, this is not super well polished, educated Greek. It's not the kind of stuff that you would read in the Book of Acts or in like Hebrews, where that's like super advanced Greek. So I mean, he knows what he's doing, and I think the deliberate choice to use the neuter, again, suggest out of the possibilities that we have, it would seem to suggest the experience as opposed to, I think, Jesus, the masculine person, or even in the context, the life. Um, it just it just grammatically those won't work. So anyway, I think we have to kind of like keep reading to kind of see what happens there, because we have these dangling verbs where we have this object that's unnamed. I mean, the subject, of course, is we. Those are the subject of the verbs.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so, but I'll let you kind of work through verse 2, and then we can kind of see if we can figure out what in the world this author is doing.
Yeah, so verse 2, this is an interruption in his thought. And it's, I mean, it's even marked here in the NA28, you have that dash, that M
Yeah,
dash. And then at the end of the verse, there's also an M dash. You can't see it right now on the screen,
it's
but
on the next page. Yeah,
where is it? Yeah, yeah. So there's that
yeah,
dash, yeah, at the beginning of 3. But so 2 starts off Kai He Zoe Ephanerothe. So and the life was revealed. Um, Kai Herokamen, Kai Marturumen, Kai Apangelamen. So again, he does another string. This time it's not ha something, it's just the verbs themselves. But he does Kai Herokamen. So that's and we have seen. So he that kamen there, that um why am I blanking on what the
it's from Orao.
no
Oh, perfect.
no the ka, why am I blanking, what letter is that, what is that called?
Kappa.
Kappa, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry, oh my goodness, I could not think of it.
you started
Yeah.
the drinking game already. Yeah,
Yeah, so herokamen, that's a signal there, it's in the
yeah,
perfect.
yeah.
So interestingly, herokamen, that's in the perfect, but then marturumen and apangelomen, both of
Right,
those are in the present.
right.
So it's we have seen this, and we are witnessing or bearing
Yep,
witness, and we are proclaiming apangelomen.
yep.
We are proclaiming. Um, so again, this, they have seen whatever this thing is, they have seen it, this life, but then they are proclaiming it and they are bearing witness to it.
Yeah,
Um, and so continuing here, apangelamen humin, we are proclaiming to you. What are they proclaiming? Well, tain zoane tain ionion, uh, eternal life. This, the eternal life, the life in the age, ionion, that can mean age. So yeah, the eternal life, or the age life. Um, Hetis, that's a relative pronoun, which ein proston patera, which, what is this? This is exactly the language from John 1, from John 1
yeah,
1. Proston. The interesting thing, though, it's in John 1, it's proston theon.
yeah.
Here it's proston patera. So
Yep.
so with the Father, John 1 1 is with God. So which was with the Father here in 1 John 1 2.
Mm-hmm.
So they're proclaiming all this stuff, this eternal life, which was with the Father. So I think if we had any confusion about John 1 1, who is God there, in the proston theon, that's the Father. So I think this confirms that reading of John 1 1.
Yeah, yeah. We'll see a little bit more of that. He gets very, very specific on who God is in a few verses later, and with some details that I think people just kind of reading very quickly overlook. And so we'll get to narrow that down without having to resort to looking at the prologue. But you're absolutely right.
Yeah. Um, and then Kai phanerothe hemin. So, and was revealed to us. So this life was with the Father and was revealed to us.
Yeah.
So that's his interruption here. And I want to talk about, if it's okay, Dustin, talk
Yeah.
about what I think is going on here
Sure.
between the end of verse 1 and then, verse 2 and verse 3, kind of those first three verses.
Okay.
To me, and scholars have different opinions on this, but to me, it makes sense that he is, he's saying what we have seen, what we have heard concerning the word of life. Then verse 2 is a huge parentheses. But then in verse 3, he starts again, what we have seen, what we have
Yep.
heard. He literally starts over. So uh I think you could almost do a dot 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 at the end of verse 2, because he never actually finishes the sentence in verse 1.
Yeah.
Verse 1 is a big incomplete sentence. So that's just, I don't want to steal too much time from you in verse 3, but that's my understanding of what's going on leading up into verse 3, and he seems to almost start over in verse 3.
Yeah.
So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah. Well, let's get to verse 3. But clearly we have I mean, we don't have any punctuation marks that indicate a sentence has been completed here. And granted, all the punctuation marks are editorial additions in the Greek New Testament. And I'm not suggesting for those reading that you can't trust them. I actually think that 99.9% of them in a standard Greek New Testament, like the NA 28 or the UBS 5, are completely fine. There might be one or two to where you're like, oh, well, it could go either way, whether it should be a question mark or a period, but
Yeah.
not in these. But the point here is that we've got one very, very long run-on sentence, okay, which seems like we don't actually get any ending until right here in the middle of verse 3. So,
Yep.
okay, let's. I want to say one other thing too about your text. I thought that was kind of. I make this point to my Greek students. So here, um, where was the right here? Okay, so we have it's a second person plural pronoun in the dative, to you.
Yeah.
And when this gets put into English, it just says to you. But in English, we don't know if you means you in the singular or you in the plural. And
Yep.
most people, they just read the Bible and they think, oh, to you, as in, oh, to me, as an individual. But
Yeah.
it's important to note here that this is to you all, meaning to all the readers, to all the people that are reading this particular letter. And of course, that would initially be the original audience, what I think is what I'm going to call the Johannine community, probably a church either in Ephesus or somewhere in the vicinity of Ephesus for a lot of other interesting reasons. But when I tell my Greek students, and I'm teaching Greek this semester, as I say, whenever you see these right here, you need to indicate to me that it's you all, like you parentheses all, to indicate to me that you know that this is second person plural, because I think that makes a big difference in your interpretation. I know you know that, but I'm
Yeah.
pointing that
No,
out here.
it's a great thing to point out. Yeah.
So here in the South, we translate, we put y'all there.
I
Um,
know. I wish
yeah,
I there are literally times where I wish we did that in the actual text, because yeah, I really think there are times where I know, like, I'm translating, I'm like, I know somebody's going to read this as a you singular, and I see it, it's clearly in the text as a you plural.
yeah,
So
yeah,
that's funny. Yeah, we should have
yeah.
like a Texas edition.
I actually have some students who they're kind of refugees from Ukraine, and they don't understand the y'all thing just yet. But I'm trying to get them some culture to understand the real way that we talk around here. So anyway, yeah, the joke, by the way, because I also live in Texas, is that the plural of y'all is all y'all.
Oh,
Okay,
y'all.
all y'all, even though
Yeah.
y'all is already as plural, but that's just kind of a slang way of saying like lots and lots of people. Okay, all right, let's move
So
on
funny.
to verse 3. Still in the middle of this long run-on sentence. Okay, all right. Wow, you get all the short ones and I get all the long ones. Okay. All right.
Yeah, sorry.
That's all right. I'm looking at number 4 and I'm like, that's really short. That's okay. It's all right. That's fine. All right. All right. So, o erokamen ke aki koamen op angelomen ke imin ina ke imis kino neon ekiti meth imon period. Okay, new sentence. Ke kinonia they metera meta tu patros ke meta tu eu aftu Jesu Christu. Period. Okay, what do we have going on here? So let me take that away for a second. Okay, so we have let's see, that which we have seen, still in the perfect tense, which I'm surprised neither of us have actually pointed this out. So what is the function of the perfect tense? What does it mean to say that which we have seen? So the perfect tense indicates something in the past, but the effects of that are still felt in the present. It's a very, very important distinction. It's not a completed action in the past. It's something that had finished in the past, but it still has lingering effects in the present. So here, if it's that which we have seen, then we're still experiencing what we've seen in the present right now. And it's a really important point for exegesis in a lot of passages. But you have to know what it means in order to draw the significance from that. Okay, that we have seen, and there again it was repeating the same verbs that we've seen 2 or 3 times already, and
Yeah.
we have heard. Okay, and then as you correctly pointed out, we're now moving again to the present tense. Let's see, part like we announce. It's like it's sort of like a superlative. You have angelo, which is to announce, and then when you have the op in front of it, there it's kind of like a higher level. So it's like
Yeah.
we proclaim,
We super announced.
yeah, like I'll go with announce. Okay, all right. Okay, we announce. Then we have this word and. So typically I don't want to say the word and. Okay, so the word k, um, when I teach this to my Greek students, they could have basically 3 meanings. Okay, and even or also, and even or also, and I make sure that on the very first quiz, whenever this comes up there, I force them to give me all 3 of those answers. Okay, so
Interesting.
the I want them to know that, because here, if you just translate this and, it doesn't work. Okay, so this is probably something that's more of like we announce. I'm going to say also to you. There's that second person plural pronoun in
Yep.
the dative. So again, that which we have seen and we have heard, we announce also to you. Almost like I'm emphasizing it. We also announce this to you. Okay. Again, that's just my guess. All right. Then we
Yeah.
have Ina, which is in order that. Okay. And what's important to understand I probably should translate all this into English first, and then we can go back and talk about it. So, okay. All right. In order that also, and then there we have the masculine second person, sorry, not masculine, sorry, the nominative second person plural pronoun, you all. And then we have the noun kinonion, so just say fellowship.
Yep.
And then we have the verb to have, but because Ina is going to force the next verb into the subjunctive, it's going to be in the subjunctive in order that um, you all might have fellowship. And then we have meta, but it just gets changed to meth when the
Yep.
following word has basically a bunch of vowels. And so meta, of course, is another one of our prepositions that is going to change its meaning based on what comes after. So if it is followed by the accusative, it's after. So I remember like accusative a, after a. And then, of course, if it's followed by the genitive, which is what we have right here, it means with. Okay. And then with, and then we have the first person plural pronoun with us. Okay.
Yep.
So
Yep.
let's just we end with a period there. Let's go through that whole thing. Okay. So that which we have seen and we have heard, we announce or we are announcing even to you all, in order that in order that maybe also. Now, here's the interesting thing. When you have a verb in Greek, the subject is bound up in the verb. Okay.
Yep.
So whenever a pronoun in the nominative case appears with the verb, because it's not necessary, the author is putting that in there for emphasis. It's an emphatic use. And so when I teach pronouns, I note that, hey, when a pronoun is there in the nominative case, it's emphatic. It's there for, so it's not in order that you all might have fellowship. The stress there is on the you all, in order that you all, like you all, like that's the stress there, which is, it's hard to bring out into an English translation. Okay, so he's stressing not the having, not the fellowship. He's stressing the
You.
subject, you all. Okay, so you can underline that or however you want to do it, or um, it's a really key exegetical point that just it's impossible to bring that out into English, and so it's just one of the deficiencies of the English language. Okay, so why is the author, not just the author, but it's, I mean, the author saying we are doing this, like he's standing on behalf of other people. It's not I am announcing, it's we are announcing, even to you all, in order that you all might have fellowship with us. Okay. So
Yep.
they're sharing this experience in order that the readers might have this fellowship. And this fellowship is going to continue to show up throughout this passage. So I don't want to give a good definition of it yet. I kind of feel like a lot of people just say, well, I know what fellowship is. Fellowship just means that I have like things in common with people at my church. But there's much more to it than that. It's much deeper than just, having some things in common, like, hey, I'm in Christ and we believe the same things. I have fellowship with you. Or some people will even call their church services, they'll call them fellowships, or they'll have a fellowship hall, which is just a place in their church where they go and they eat potluck lunches and stuff like that. That's my favorite. That's my favorite definition, because it's yummy. But that's probably not what's being intended here. Okay, let's pick up the
Yeah.
next sentence.
Can I say one thing real
Sure,
quick?
go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. That methemon that you see there at the end of the sentence. Yeah, this is where, you know, when you don't know Greek super well, it makes it much, much more difficult. So, this is not like the most complex thing, but yeah, I mean, if you were to take that literally, it would be, with our. So like, unless you understand, oh yeah, like, meth, takes a genitive. So when it's genitive after the meth, that, or, meta,
Yeah.
that means with. And so, okay, so hey, Moan's not saying our, it's us, it's with us. And so this is where, like, you know, there's this kind of breakthrough that happens once you kind of get more familiarity with it, where it just becomes a lot easier to read.
Yeah.
And so, if you're kind of a more beginner Greek student, I would just say hang in there. When you learn these things, it just gets much, much easier to understand, and your mind starts to be able to understand how to kind of grasp these concepts.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Yeah. And the way that pronoun is going to be used is, of course, going to be governed by the definition of the preposition. So, but yeah, I can see, like, it's an overly literal translation would kind of um, make it something that's unintelligible.
Yep.
So, yeah, good point. Thanks for pointing that out to our. I mean, all of our listeners, I'm sure, are extremely intelligent, and they're all nodding their heads, saying, "Yeah, we already knew all that stuff. Tell us something we don't know." So,
Also, I would say, hey, I would encourage you, if you don't know Greek, please pull up First John, so you can be following along in the English.
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
that's right. I should have said, hey, just follow along in your favorite translation, or you can follow along in your Greek. And I imagine that people they're probably doing this. Maybe they're pausing it and they're taking notes, or whatever they're doing with it. So I hope that people are um, able to follow our conversation in a way that's meaningful to you, wherever you are in your understanding of the text of Scripture.
Yep.
And we'll get a little more nuanced at that. I'm looking at our time and I'm thinking, I don't think we're going to get to 10 verses today, Johnny, but that's okay. That's fine. So, all right, let me continue with this. This is good, because I feel like we're like, the stuff we're saying is really meaningful.
Yeah.
Okay. Next sentence, still in verse 3. Okay, so we have and the fellowship, the subject, that's in the nominative case, and the fellowship, and then we have this word they. Okay, um, This is what's called a post-positive word. What is a post-positive word? It's a word that it doesn't appear at the beginning of a sentence. It usually appears, like in my experience, it appears like the second word, like throughout
Yep.
Paul, it appears in the second word, but it doesn't appear in the first as the first word, but you have to translate it as the first word.
Yep.
Okay, that's what a post-positive word is, and they is a really popular one. Gar is another one, the word for. So they could mean either but or and. Okay. Um, Now here's what's interesting. Okay. Um, I don't think that he's making a contrast here in the sense of but. Okay. It seems more of an and. But if this gets put at the beginning, then look, we have the word they, which means and we also have the word K, which also
Yep.
means and. So, all right, Dustin, what are you going to do with this one here? Okay. Um, so, so I'm probably going to do English translation and with the word they, and then of course with K, instead of doing and, I'll just do like even. So something like and even the fellowship. And then we have here this. It's not very common. Ematera, that actually connects with koinonia, because they both have the feminine definite article. They're both there in the nominative case there. And so that is literally the fellowship, the R's. We'll just put in better English, our fellowship.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So, and even our fellowship. Then we have meta again, which is followed by the genitive. So this is going to be with. Again, if it was followed by the accusative, um, it would be after. Okay. So here we have with the Father and with the Son of Him. Okay. Namely, the Son of Him, the Son of the Father. Okay. And who is that Son? Jesus Christ. Remember, Christ is not Jesus' last name. Jesus is not the son of Mary and Joseph Christ. This means Jesus the King, Jesus the anointed King. So it's interesting here. I'll make this point about the Father and the Son. It's not just about the Father and the Son. The Son is specifically the Son of the Father. Okay. So the Father is the Father of Jesus. Like clearly, it's not just like the Father and the Son. Like there was a relationship between the two of them, where Jesus is literally the son of that figure called the Father, which I think is really important. And again, we're going to get a little more specificity when we get down later in the text. Whether we get to it today's section or session or next time, I'm not exactly sure, but I do want to kind of make that point. And of course, I should make this point, especially to my friends that believe in the eternal existence or the eternal preexistence of the Son, is that in the Bible, all sons are younger than their fathers. That's how sons are understood in the ancient world. All sons are younger than their fathers. So,
Yep.
like, I dare you to find an exception to that case. That's just how things are understood there. So,
And all sons are not their fathers.
yeah.
So
Well, obviously, yeah, that's the thing too. So, um,
yeah.
it's again, it's not just the father and the son; it's his son. Um, so that's interesting there. That notice that the fellowship is not with the Father, Son, and the Spirit. Okay, you're not fellowshipping with a Trinitarian or a tripersonal being. You're fellowshipping with the Father and the Son of the Father, which he goes out of the way and he defines the Son as Jesus Christ. He won't define the Father. I think everyone knows that, or maybe they just don't want to bring the divine name into Greek, for whatever reason. It does show up in Revelation where it's Hallelujah, but it's not showing up here.
Yeah.
Um, Anything you'd want to add to verse 3?
Um,
I feel like
no,
we kind of
no, I think it's
said a lot
great.
of stuff there.
Yeah, you got some good stuff to say. Absolutely. So, yeah.
Cool. All right. I'll give you this long one, verse 4.
All right. I'm baffled. It's still striking me. I really don't spend much time, I guess, listening to, you would say you have the modern
That's
pronunciation.
right. This is all modern Greek. You go to Greece right now, they would all read this text. So
Yeah, it just sounds so interesting to me. Like the Kai and the De. You said what?
yeah,
K
yeah,
and
it's K and they. It's a
they.
soft th, like they, like well, it's like the word the, like that sort of.
That's
It's
so
not. It's not.
interesting.
It's yeah. It's not a hard D like delta.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
a they. So
K and they. It's just it's
yeah,
uh
yeah, not
throwing me for a
Kai and
loop.
Yeah, that's okay. That's all right. It's
But I love it. No, it's great. I probably need to learn both,
it all
honestly.
means the same thing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So verse 4, kai tauta graphomen he mace. So and these we write. So there, I did want to bring this up real fast. This is a pretty big textual variant, and it has to do with, so by textual variant, for those who don't know, that just means basically there are a good amount of manuscripts that say one thing and a good amount of manuscripts that say something else. Um, so when it's really significant, they'll mark it uh, in the NA28. So in this one, in verse
I can
4 here,
we can roll down here and I can show you.
yeah, so we have who mean is also it occurs in quite a few manuscripts. Yeah, and what Dustin highlighted there, the text, those are the other manuscripts, but the text TXT just means that's what the NA28 has
That's what's
chosen.
in here. Yeah, that's what's in the. Let me see if I can get that all on one page a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe we will spend a little bit of time here explaining like why in the world are we going down here in the apparatus and maybe not too much time, but we'll
Yeah.
let's for people that have no idea how to navigate the apparatus.
Yeah, and I typically use Logos online, and it's actually really convenient with the apparatus because you don't have to like search through all the way down and figure out where's the
Yeah.
who mean or where's the verse 4. It automatically pops up, which is really nice. But yeah, so this hey mace or who mean, that's the two options, right? So if it's hey mace, it would be we write these things, and the emphasis, like you said earlier, it's actually already, you could just have tauta graphomen, and that would be we write these things, or yeah, it would be we
Yeah.
write these things.
Yeah.
But if he's chosen to add hey mace, is all that does is just emphasize the we.
Yeah.
So you don't really need it in the text, but it's just there for emphasis. And then if it's who mean, then it would be we write these things to you.
Yeah.
So that's really the textual variant. It's not nothing super crazy, nothing that super influences the text, the meaning, I should say. But yeah, so those are the two options. But let's go on because the next two options influence, our choice of this. So let
You
me
want to go
see,
back to the
where are
main
we
text, or do you
again?
want to look down in the apparatus?
No, no, no. We can just go to the main text. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
So then Hina, hey, Kara, hey, Moan. I'll just finish it out.
Sure, that's fine.
Hey, Peple Romane. So in order that, hey, Kara, joy, hey, Moan, our joy, in order that our joy, a peplomer or pepleroma.
Yeah.
Sorry, pepleromene. Sorry. Um, yeah. So in order that our joy would be completed. Am I getting that right? Am I missing the? Let me
In order
see.
that the joy of us, um,
Maybe
yeah,
made complete. I'm confused. Give me 1 second. Oh, yeah, yeah. So I was missing that. Sorry, that's just not very common. The A there is the to be. It's a form of a me.
it's
Um,
subjunctive.
yeah, the subjunctive form of a me. Sorry, I'm just not. I'm not used to that too much. So, uh, yeah, so that we may
Yeah,
be made complete.
yeah,
Peple romine.
yeah.
Um,
So it's the
so
verb
that,
to be for those. Yeah, and every single language that I know, whether it's English, Spanish, Greek, Aramaic, Hebrew, uh, German, Coptic, like the verb to be is irregular in every single language. So
yeah.
don't be surprised if it's a little weird here. So
And this is again, this is a rare form of a me, but
yeah,
yes, you're right. There's some there's some weird forms. But yeah, so this whole henna clause, in order that, our joy may be made complete.
Yeah.
So one thing to recognize too, as a Greek reminder, this henna clause, uh, basically, very, very often, if not, I could be wrong. You might know this better, Dustin. Does it always take a subjunctive verb?
Yes. Yes. Yeah. It
Um,
requires a subjunctive.
yeah. So this A here by itself, this one letter, this eta, is subjunctive, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we need to translate it, in order that our joy may be complete. You could translate it in order that our joy will be complete. It could be more of a guarantee. So the subjunctive mood is, it kind of, it introduces some conditionality. So it's
Yeah,
this
that's all
idea
it
that,
is. It's not saying that, well, it might be or it might not be. We're like, you don't know. I mean, it's kind of like, should we pray? We kind of open it up like that, but obviously the answer is yeah. But the way that you're asking it, it's just indefinite, and it's
yeah,
and
and
it's
oftentimes, that just like it does in English, that indicates purpose, right? So if we say like, hey, we should go pray,
yeah,
uh it doesn't mean like, oh, there's a chance they're not going to pray. It's like that's not the point. The point is that I'm saying, my purpose is to go
yeah,
pray. We
yeah.
should go pray.
We're not indicating anything like with the indicative, kind of like the most common types of verbs. So we're
Yeah.
not we're not indicating it. It's just a subjunctive. So
So yeah,
uh,
just as a reminder for everybody, if it's in the subjunctive, that doesn't necessarily mean this isn't going to happen. That might not be
yeah,
his emphasis. He might just be using the subjunctive because it's a henna. There might be other reasons why he's using a subjunctive.
yeah. It's
Uh,
it's a purpose clause. It's like, hey, we, if that variant is right, and I think it is, I think, we write these things. Why are we doing it? In order that, okay, your joy, um, will be made complete, or might be made complete. Yeah. So
yep,
it's it's
yep,
it's 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 indicating the intention of the main verb.
yep. But again, does it mean, is there a chance that our joy is not going to be made complete? Well, no, that's not really what he's saying. He's just saying his intention is to make
He's
their
he's
joy
already written
complete.
it. I mean, or sorry,
Yeah.
they've already written it. They've already written these things.
Yep.
So
Yep. 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 All right, cool. I don't want to spend too, we should probably move on. I don't want to
yeah,
spend
yeah.
too
Well, we're
long on
we're
it.
kind of at our like the 50-51 minutes mark at this particular point, and I think
Okay.
I'm looking at the size of verse 5. And I'm thinking, if I want to kind of keep this under an hour, I don't know if we're going to be able to do that. Um, but I thought it'd be good if maybe just kind of in the last 5 to 10 minutes, probably for each of our little video sessions here, if we kind of talk about ways in which pastors or priests or preachers can actually use the Greek of this particular text in their own exegesis, so they can bring the meaning out in a way that they can use in their own sermons or in their own preaching or in their own homilies. It may actually be that First John, which doesn't seem to be exhibiting the characteristics of an actual epistle, where the author identifies himself and he says, "I'm writing to this group, grace and peace. Here's my purpose." We don't
Yep.
get. I mean, we don't see any of that right there, and so um, it's more likely that this is probably a sermon or a theological tractate. Um, so anyway, okay, so if you're doing this and maybe you're a preacher or a pastor, how would you um, pull something out of this particular passage from Greek in your own preaching? I think for me, I mean, I'll give one particular observation that I have, and then Johnny, if you have one in particular, I think you can jump out there. But I
Yeah.
think that the fact that um, the the fellowship that's being discussed here, we've actually seen it show up two times. I think two times, yeah, but definitely shows up a little bit later in the passage there. Um, that Christian fellowship that we are supposed to share is a fellowship with God, who is described as the Father, and of course with the Son of God, who is Jesus. And that's the fellowship. It's not just a fellowship with God, and it's certainly not simply an in Christ thing. Actually, we don't have kind of like the Pauline language here. From the perspective of the author, Christian fellowship is with God and with Jesus, who is God's king, Jesus the king, the king of God's kingdom. There's no fellowship with the Spirit. Okay, no one fellowships with the Spirit. Um, at least not in this particular passage.
Yep.
And so there's no Trinitarian fellowship that's actually taking place here. It's basically fellowship with God and with the Son of God, and that's interesting. Like we are fellowshipping with the Creator of the universe and his human Son, who's been highly exalted and empowered and enthroned at God's right hand, and that's not insignificant. And so, actually, as the passage goes on, and we're kind of getting ahead of ourselves, it's going to become clear that having fellowship is contingent on walking in the light. It's
Yep.
actually contingent on actually behaving in a way that is truthful and living appropriately. So, but we'll have to wait till next session to kind of look at the specifics of that. Anything
Yeah.
you'd want to add, Johnny?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, one thing that's I think sticking out to me as of right now is this idea of the physicality and the historicity of Jesus, so that
Yeah,
Jesus was a real person. He lived and walked. And I think, for you and probably for me as well, we've spent so much time reading, and sometimes it gets we forget that Jesus lived and breathed and had friends and had struggles. And I think this passage really emphasizes this idea that he's a living, breathing
yeah,
human Messiah that we can have faith in. We're not having faith in a book. My faith is not in a book. My faith is in a person. Um, and I just think to emphasize that we uh, have the luxury as Christians of not basing our faith on he said, she said,
yeah,
but we can say, or even somebody's teachings. Most religions are based on a set of teachings.
yeah.
Christianity is based on a person and what a person did. And to me, I forget that very often. I think it's so helpful to remember that, and so reassuring to me, to know, ultimately, like there's so many things I research. I spend my days researching. They ultimately they pale in comparison. As Paul said, I want to know nothing besides Jesus Christ and Him crucified.
Yeah.
That is the centrality of our faith. And yeah, it's just a luxury that we get to base our faith and have confidence. We don't have to, it's not a guess. We don't have to guess, well, I hope this guy's teachings are true. We get to rest and know that they are true, and the true why, because we're going back to this event, the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus.
Right.
So that would be one thing that I would point out. Yeah.
Let me
So
jump on that too. I think it's important that the Bible doesn't tell us to put our faith in the Bible. We're
yep,
not ever called to put our faith and trust in the scriptures. You're
yep,
told to put your faith and trust in God and Jesus. And there's a big difference
yep,
between those things. I think when when the object of their faith is the Bible, and then something happens to where they don't understand the Bible, then their faith is broken. But you're not called to do that. I mean,
yep,
like the early Christians were called to put their faith in Jesus before any of these New Testament books were ever written. And
yep.
they were Christians,
And they did it.
in good standing in the new covenant. So
Yeah, and
um
one more thing too. I mean, yeah, that's exactly what the Pharisees did, right? The Pharisees, Jesus says to them, "You search the scriptures because you think that in them is life, but the scriptures bear witness about me."
yeah.
So, what is he doing there? He's drawing their God from being the scriptures to being, not that Jesus is their God, but their
Yeah,
where what they're
the
trusting,
object of their focus and the
the
object of their
object of
hope.
their
Yeah.
faith.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Cool deal. Well, hey, I appreciate you all if you've stuck with it this entire time. Let us know what you liked in this whole thing. This is kind of like our pilot episode. We have no idea if we're going to even get, we'll probably get 2 views, which is like me watching it and Johnny watching it, but hopefully there's some other people that find this interesting. And let us know what you think. If there are things that you like and you want to see more of, let us know in the comments. If there are things like, oh, that was really bad, please don't ever do that again. Um, let us know as well, and we'll make some changes. And our hope is to, maybe every 2 weeks put out another episode. We'll just go for an hour and we'll see as far as we get in the text. And hopefully this encourages you to dust off your own Greek and use it in a meaningful way, or to decide, hey, I want to kind of learn Greek for myself. And there's a lot of really great things you can do by understanding Greek when it comes to interpreting the New Testament. Thanks for watching. Take care, and we will see you next time.